Miranda vs. Arizona by Natalie Aziz, Stephanie Tchardakova, Dalal Hazim, Jena Fuller, and Jena Munson.
Miranda vs. Arizona background by Stephanie Tchardakova. To begin with, Ernesto Miranda was accused of raping and kidnapping a woman. This situation had led to investigators taking Miranda into a police lineup. There, after being questioned for about 2 hours, he finally pled guilty for his actions. While Miranda's hearing during the investigation, the police did not tell him about his rights, including the Fifth and Sixth Amendments. The Fifth Amendment included his protection against self-incrimination, and the Sixth Amendment was a right to an attorney. The Miranda v. Arizona case took place in Arizona, beginning in the Arizona Supreme Court, then making its way to the United States Supreme Court.
The Fifth and Sixth Amendment by Jena Munson. What is the meaning of the Fifth Amendment? In simple terms, it means that you can't be charged with a crime unless a grand jury makes a finding of a probable cause. That you can't be charged with the same crime twice once you've been discharged. That you can't be forced to make statements against yourself or be subject to criminal penalties without due process. Or to have your property condemned without being paid for. What is the meaning of the Sixth Amendment? The Sixth Amendment of the United States Constitution is the section of the Bill of Rights that guarantees a citizen a speedy trial, a fair jury, an attorney if the accused person wants one, and a chance to confront the witness who is accusing the defendant of a crime, meaning he or she can see who is making the accusations. The Sixth Amendment was introduced as a part of the Bill of Rights into the United States Constitution on September 5th.
About Miranda vs. Arizona by Dalal Hazim. Miranda was arrested at his home and taken in custody to a police station where he was identified by the complaining witness. He was then interrogated by 2 police officers for 2 hours, which resulted in a signed written confession. At trial, the oral and written confessions were presented to the jury. Miranda was found guilty of kidnapping and rape and was sentenced to 2 to 30 years imprisonment on each count. On appeal, the Supreme Court of Arizona held that Miranda's constitutional rights were not violated in obtaining the confession. All About Miranda Rights by Dalal Hazim. Miranda rights begin with the right to remain silent and continue with the statement that anything said can and will be used against the defendant in a court of law. The police are further compelled to inform the suspect of his or her right to an attorney and allow for a defendant's attorney who can accompany him during interrogations. Because none of these rights were afforded to Ernesto Miranda and his confession was thus unconstitutionally admitted. At trial, his conviction was reserved. Miranda was later retried and convicted without the admission of his confession.
Ernesto Miranda before Miranda v. Arizona by Natalie Aziz. Ernesto Arturo Miranda was an American citizen. He was born in Mesa, Arizona on March 9, 1941. Ernesto began getting into trouble when he was in 8th grade. He was convicted of burglary and sentenced to a year in reform school at Arizona State Industrial School for Boys. He was released and later convicted of another crime, and then sent back to reform school. When he was released for the second time, he moved to Los Angeles, California. He lived in California for a couple months and was arrested again for suspicion of armed robbery and sexual offenses. He was arrested for 2.5 years, then extradited back to Arizona. Ernesto was sentenced to jail time in multiple states in the southern U.S. for multiple crimes. He also spent a year in federal prison for stealing a vehicle and driving it across state lines. For the next couple years, Ernesto kept out of jail. He worked at several places until he found a job as a laborer on the night loading dock for the Phoenix Produce Company. He started living with a 29-year-old mother of 2 named Twyla Hoffman.
How Miranda vs. Arizona Affected Society by Jena Fuller. Miranda vs. Arizona changed how criminals would be arrested. The Supreme Court had ruled that criminal suspects must be told their constitutional rights for an attorney, and so they do not self-incriminate themselves. These constitutional rights are stated before police questioning. If not stated, the prosecutor cannot use what the suspect said against them during trial. These rights are used to protect those who are ignorant to the law. The Miranda rights state you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney, and if you cannot afford one, one will be appointed to you.